My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way we live. If you like today's episode, as always, make sure to rate the program and give us a follow. Today, we're joined by Steve Walton, MD of NMCB Consulting, which I've just learned stands for No More Corporate, and you can guess the rest. Co-founder and partner of Everything Counts, Steve and his team at Everything Counts works with procurement enablement to be able to help stakeholders in procurement be dangerous in all the best ways. Steve's had a career in indirects with deep mileage in marketing, procurement, and transformation across banks, travel, PE-backed scale-ups, and more. He's obsessed with one thing, turning procurement from a late-stage hurdle into an early-stage accelerant through training, better supplier relationships, and building the right team around the buyer. Buckle up for some pragmatic playbooks, a few myths to bust, and some why didn't we do this sooner type of moments. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be here.
Excited to have you on. I'm curious, directs versus indirects. It's this age-old element within procurement. When you hear the word indirects, what do you think that a lot of teams are getting wrong?
A good question. For me, it's the importance of indirects to a business. Most teams, maybe not teams, in organizations as such, they basically, indirects is an afterthought. When and it's, if you're looking at indirects, you're looking at how everything in the back office. So the broadness of the category, when you look at it, it's from property, facilities management to finance, audit, insurance, IT, including cyber insurance, which is obviously paramount nowadays. The cyber insurance, how important cyber is, and cyber protection, hardware, software, HR, payroll, rewards and benefits, marketing, research, logistics. It's just the space is massive.
Yeah.
And it's just a huge amount of, I mean, not every company has all those categories, but they don't have. So professional services may not have logistics, but it's that broadness of and the importance of a business. So it tends to get overlooked, and that's where it becomes dangerous, because you end up with an ever increasing supply base. And we all know that's dangerous for a business.
Indeed, yeah, the tail.
The tail, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of that indirect spend lies, and that's what a lot of people are battling with. Indirects does get this rap of it's coffee to the office and computers and pens and paper. I mean, why do you think that misconception continues to be proliferated in the space?
I think it's lack of education. I mean, we usually report to, most procurement functions report to CFOs, and CFOs look at numbers. And when you see indirects versus directs, usually directs are a much bigger spend and a much, so it's, whilst it's important, I think that's why sometimes it's not seen as important as a direct thing. I think professional services companies, those obviously they are very keen on getting their costs under control, and because they're less direct than they are indirect, so there's more indirect focus. So that's that. I think that for me is one of the reasons why it's just the value of the spend, really. If you're a car manufacturer, your indirect spend will probably be infinitesimally smaller.
Yeah.
Well, I've worked in automotive, so I don't know. Before anybody writes a letter of complaint saying there's a massive indirect spend in Ford, which there probably is a massive indirect spend, but compared to aluminium sheeting, it's probably nothing. So,
Yeah.
So
I think that it's interesting with this topic as well, right? Because while we're talking about directs and indirects, there is an element of, value added versus non-value added spend. And in certain aspects, it almost comes back to that, right? Because one could be in a business that, like you said, is a professional services business. With that being said, their marketing or software spend, which in another organization might be considered indirect, is actually a huge value add.
Mhm.
I mean, when you've been in the businesses you've worked in, what's the most valuable thing that you've been in charge of buying that you don't think ever really appeared on the bill of materials or wouldn't be considered direct? And also, what was the importance to that business?
I think for me, being from a marketing procurement background, obviously in my last few years, I've been more of a holistic generalist looking at strategic procurement. But from me, media auditing, when you have advertising, the not having that audited is criminal in this day and age. If you have a significant media spend, you need to have it audited. And I think that one of my clients a long time ago um, didn't have that. They had a considerable spend in media. Um, they didn't have media auditing. We brought it in into the fray, and it saved them millions because you have not only looking at whether your media agency is placing the ads at the right age group and right demographics audit. You also have, are they adhering to terms of the contract from a financial perspective audit? And together, one, it gives the marketeers ammunition, if needed, to challenge the agencies if they're not placing adverts correctly, and getting the right demographic. Because you can fudge figures. You can go for a older group and then a younger group, and if you merge them two, you get the middle of the road group in an age perspective. So you can there are um so yeah, so that from that perspective, there's ways of doing that, and I think that brings to the forefront where you manage a supplier relationship properly by using, and this was using an external supplier to help you manage that supplier, so a media auditing firm, such as Ubiquity, or so that to me is was paramount
Yeah.
and brings a lot of value to the marketers because they get insight into what they didn't know.
Very interesting insights. Let's take a step back. NMCB. What inspired you to name your consultancy firm and or consultancy firm that you're a part of?
I
Go
basically,
more corporate,
yeah, yeah. Well, as I said, my background was blue chip, big blue chip companies, is permanent, and I did 16, 17 years as a permanent procurement professional, going up the ranks, and you know, with the likes of Glaxo, you know, um, Orange and mobile company that was in the UK in the 90s and earlier noughties, um, and some other big companies I worked for. And I worked across the board in different categories, for those big multinational conglomerates. And obviously, the training you get with all that is absolutely fantastic.
Mm.
I did a lot, majority of SIPs, but I found it wasn't geared towards what I was doing. It wasn't geared towards marketing, and I don't think it still is, particularly because there is enough procurement out there on the big scale buying directs. It's geared towards directs. There wasn't a lot of stuff for professional services, marketing, the softer side.
Mm.
But I'd done the 16, 17 years of blue chip stuff, and I just thought, you know what, you get faced with internal difficulties
Mm.
that hindered you doing your job. So things such as savings reportings and ticking all the right boxes and ticking all the right things and making sure you did things in a particular way. And I just got a bit battle weary, I suppose. And so I just thought, you know what, I'm going to create an agency that's going to bring some of that to smaller companies, and not have all the bureaucracy with it,
Mm.
because you have to fill this format and that format and that format and this, and it's signed in triplicate by 17 different people. It's like, no, I want to be able to speak to the person who's involved, and I want to help them get what they need from their supplier base. And so I created NMCB Consulting.
Fantastic. And daring to be able to take a chance on yourself. I'm happy to hear that it's worked out for you as well.
Yeah.
I love asking this question to people that have dared to take a chance on themselves. If you were to go back at the beginning of your career and give advice to a young Steve Walton, what would you say?
Um, Depends how far you're going back, to be fair. If you're saying my career was in procurement, well, I started as administrator, to be fair. When I was at Glaxo, I started as administrator, doing reps administration, where I was filing their expenses and sending the post out to them, because this is the days before beautiful computers and things, because I'm that old. So yeah, so we did a lot of stuff manually. And it was and when you were allowed to, when the marketing director would walk through the office with a big fat cigar, and all the people he'd work with would all be smoking while they're working away, and it's like, so it's, things have massively changed. So early on, I would have just said, believe in yourself. I would have said to myself, don't get disheartened by what people say to you. They have their own agendas. And be true to yourself, and basically, believe in yourself, because that's all it is about belief in yourself. And you can learn and learn and learn, but you have to be true to yourself and believe in yourself to be able to, have a happy life.
Solid advice.
And that, to me, is all I can say. If you're in a junior role now and you're hating procurement, get out, do something else, because you need to be true to yourself.
Yeah. What got you into procurement? I'm always curious. I mean,
This is where, when I joined Glaxo, as I say, I was administrator.
yeah.
And they were looking for a junior buyer in the creative services function at Glaxo. And I didn't know anything about creative services. I just wanted out of the administration role. I saw a massive conglomerate, ways of going up the ladder, the usual thing when you've just come out of college. And I went for this job as a creative services junior buyer. And what that was basically print buying, which I knew nothing about. So I went to college on a day release, did print buying course, got a certificate as being a print, understand from the BPIF, the British Printing Industries Federation, and got a qualification in print, understand all about print and offset litho and all sorts of stuff like that a long time ago. And because it was before the onset of digital, our marketing was direct mail, envelopes,
Wow.
T-shirts, post-it pads, pens with your product name on it, anything with your product name on it, aprons, you name it, I've printed stuff on it. And basically, that's what I did for the best part of 10 years. I became a senior print buyer in Glaxo's print creative services area. Started looking at agencies, which agencies we had, the pharmaceutical agencies. We also I introduced this is where my love of training came from, and my belief in training stakeholders, in that we developed a plan where we took all the undergraduates and anybody who came into the marketing teams from outside in the sales force, but also on the undergraduate scheme, where they'd come from college and they'd start the graduate scheme. We would basically we'd take them to a printer, and we'd take them through the whole process for a day of how something gets created and printed and made. And we'd also give them some pointers. So there was a very large drug at that time called Zantac, and its color was a Pantone blue reference, and it basically took 24 hours to dry. So we'd get them through a timeline of having to get some printed, and said, but if you've got Zantac as one of your logos, you have to leave 24 hours for the blue to dry, because it won't dry otherwise. And the last thing you want to do is put a wet piece of print into an envelope, if you're sending it out to a doctor, because he's going to end up with blue fingers.
Yeah, right.
And he's not going to be impressed. And so there was this whole, it was quite jovial and lighthearted, but it was quite serious as well. And that was key to me starting to say, right, okay, you have to start educating them earlier. This is where the whole thing with NMCB, and I didn't realize at the time the importance of it, but that was key in my understanding of, especially in indirects. I think if you're buying ingredients, it's a completely different ball game and stuff like that. And that's specific, and your category. But indirects, you have to try and get the stakeholder to understand the process. And I think that was where it all started for me, was in print.
There's a element that I want to get back to with training, but before we do, you intrigue me with this aspect of buying physical assets for marketing, right?
Yeah.
How do you think that like the role of indirect procurement has shifted now that, digital is the status quo, right?
Yeah, it's all professional services now. It's all service orientated in the main.
Yeah.
Obviously, facility management, you still have people going in and sorting out. You still have
Right,
cleaners.
right.
You still have all that sort of stuff. And in IT, you still have hardware, and things like that, and servers and laptops and cameras and keyboards and phones. So you do have, but I think now a lot of indirects, I believe, is geared around service industry.
Yeah.
And buying people's expertise, which obviously in marketing you always did, because you always bought agency expertise.
Right.
You always bought creative services expertise. You bought media people's expertise. So
Right.
in that respect, you did buy it. Obviously, you bought advertising space, but you had somebody who knew that your agency knew how to buy advertising space, and it was the kickbacks that you have to be wary of.
What would you give it as advice to somebody that's maybe, coming into indirects today? What type of buying should they train themselves on SaaS buying, on AI buying, on cloud services?
I think obviously there is a massive market indirects in IT. I mean, IT is a
Yeah.
huge category for indirects, and it pays very well if you're a really good. Yeah, I mean, I would suggest, if you want one area to understand is the ERP systems out there. So SaaS, Cooper, all those types of ERP systems, Oracle, because they are, if you want to be in big business and they're using SaaS or Oracle, there's a lot of need for expertise in the procurement of those services. And I think, there's a lot now, there's a proliferation of smaller procurement based software services as well. Software as a service, SaaS software, it's massive, and it makes me laugh, because people say, oh, they want to have a SaaS expert. I was like, well, if everything's SaaS now, so how can you be an expert in every single? It's just mind boggling, because they've all got their own nuances. They've all got their, you have a SaaS agreement, and it comes back down to contracting as well, is that you end up using the supplier's contract because their contract's geared towards their service.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's an interesting one, but yeah, IT is a massive area.
Yeah.
And there's lots of variety in it as well.
Well, this is one of the things that I think is so interesting about indirects as a function, right? Is because it does span, like you said, from facility services to logistics to hardware to software and beyond. When you're looking at spend, particularly, let's take the category of marketing, right? And choosing an agency or like to be able to support you. How in the heck do you put a price tag on what it's worth, right? Where does the benchmark? You know what I mean?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, obviously, because as we chatted before, I mean, Nike's "Just Do It"
Yeah.
slogan came from Whedon, and when they did that, it was they've been credited to say that what the CEO, I can't remember his name at the moment in time, but he was credited at the time saying that it came from when Gary Gilmore was about to face corporal punishment, death, and he just went, "Let's do it."
Wow.
And that was the, so, and Nike have used "Just Do It" from that agency for the last, I hate to think how long for. So what
years.
price would you put on that?
Yeah.
So it's difficult. It's difficult because if you get the right thing at the right time in marketing, you know, it's, Vorsprung-Technik. I don't know. Audi have used that since I was a child. That for me is so when you have something that's a piece of gold, how can you put a price on it? You can't, but you just hope it works. And so that's why the beauty of is with marketing, it's about getting the agency to get you as a client.
Mm.
You have chemistry sessions. When you do an RFP for marketing agencies, you get chemistry sessions, you do, and you get people around the table and you get them to understand where you give them a scenario and you get what they come back with, and you see if they fit with what the marketing teams are visually thinking, and also if it floats their boat and those types of things. And so it's a very much a relationship piece, and them getting you and you getting them. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
And I think and that to me is key in marketing, is that they get you and you get them, and it's not just about the money. Marketing is a revenue generator. It's an investment in the business. It's not a cost center. And once again, coming back down to the CFO, there's a lot of CFOs, not everyone, but a lot of CFOs just see marketing as a cost center.
Right.
And it's like, well, actually, it's actually an investment center, because if you get the right teams, the right agencies, the right personnel that bring those things to life, that's, I mean, when I worked at Orange, we had a fantastic agency who brought the Orange brand to life in cinema advertising, where they were very, I mean, people are old enough and in the UK might remember that there was some really funny advertising pieces just before the main film, the gold spot in advertising, in that they were brilliant, because they were just funny, but they were really, really impactful at the time. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I can tell from your stories that you've had a lot of time, a lot of times in working in being able to buy things that created special experiences for people. And I think that that's the one unique thing that marketing procurement has the opportunity to do that's sometimes forgotten, right? Like you said, because otherwise it's just seen as a cost center, not a value creator. And I think there's so much value to be created. Now, I want to double back, because I want to make sure that we have the time to speak a little bit about training, right? Um, at everything counts, in your training programs that you guys run, which do you see as like kind of the part of your training programs which flips the so-called proverbial light bulb the fastest for procurement teams that you're working with?
I mean, it's different because all stakeholders are different. You get people along their journey. Like in a recent contract I was working with, a client I was working with, met a fantastic lady who was absolutely head of data collection. She was brilliant, absolutely brilliant at what she did. But she didn't take the training because I was sat in front of her. So she had the training direct from me. But from my perspective, she had all the skill sets, but she didn't have the confidence to challenge a supplier.
Hmm.
So I'd sit down and I'd say with her when I first met her, I said, "So what do you do this and what do you do this and do this? How do these relationships work with your supplier base?" And she went, "Well, I do this and that." And I said, "So when do you challenge them?" And she went, "I don't." I go, "Why don't you?" "Well, because they're our suppliers." And I went, "And I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to make them angry, because if they walk away, it makes it difficult for us." I went, "Why would you think they're going to walk away?" And so there's this, and we had this conversation, and over a few times of her being in me being in a negotiation or in a conversation with the supplier
Mm.
with her, she started to build a repertoire, and she said, I've made pages and pages of notes of what you say and how you say it, and things like that allow, yeah, and it's not confrontational. I think that's the thing. I think people have a misconception that negotiation is confrontational. Yes, sometimes there are some toys thrown out of prams, yeah, because you have to get your point across, and some people don't like it. And if a supplier's never had that type of relationship with the client, and it's always been just what the supplier says and you get on with it and do it, then you're going to understand there's going to be a little bit of difficulty.
Mm.
But yeah, so that to me was, you know, taking the training that and what you've got to remember that I wrote the training with 3 others. And so you've got basically all my experience and 2 other people's experience of 30 years of indirects, basically. They've got 30 years. So it's 90 to 100 years worth of indirects experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. In different areas. So one's, you know, we've all put different bits into it. It covers most of the areas of indirects because everybody's different. So there's a piece. If I was to say you need to watch one bit, it would be the first bit. All your stakeholders should watch the first module. It's 5 modules. First module, which is all about thinking about it. So there's a piece in there that says the old adage: if it was your money, would you still buy it? You know, and that's in the training. That is because people don't think like that. Stakeholders don't think. There's this whole thing around, oh, it's my money, it's my budget, I can spend it. And it's like, well, no, it's not your money, it's the business's money, and you're safeguarding that. So if you cannot spend it, the business will thank you for it, because if you don't need to spend it, don't spend it. And that's one of the things that we try to educate marketeers about, because they got a budget and think, oh, comes to the end of the year, think, shit, we've got more money. Sorry, I swore then. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
We've still got
Welcome.
we're still sorry. Apologies to everybody. So yeah, but they've got budget left, and so they spend it, and it's like, but are you getting value for that? Are you just spending it for the sense of spending it? If you're not, then, you know, I'm sure the CFO would be much happier to go, there you go, I haven't spent that because I didn't need to, because I've done this, isn't this?
Yeah.
Look at the upstream. Look at, I mean, with the amount of analytics and stuff that you're doing, like I said, it's all online now. The amount of analysis and data you can get for what your campaigns do and how they impact stuff.
Yeah.
You can see quite easily that spend has impacted that thing, and it therefore moves that dial that way. And so you don't need to spend the extra. It always made me laugh where you get to the end of the year and it'd be like, oh, we've got to get rid of this budget, because it's like, no, you don't. And it's that educational piece about, if you're doing it right, you don't need to. Or if you, and also that the thing around making sure that you earmark what you're doing so that people know. Talk to finance, say, look, I'm not doing it this year, but I want to do it next year, and it's going to be this amount of money, rather than trying to put it into a budget and then going back and then going, no, that's more than your budget was. But I didn't do it last year. I gave you money back last year. I want to do it. And it's that type of, you know, it's understanding that. But I think the first bit of our training, going back to the original question, first bit of our training is that light bulb moment where they go, don't work in silos, treat it as your own money. You know, think of it like a holiday. If you're going to book a holiday, would you just book it and go? No, you'd speak to your mates if you're going on holiday with mates, or you'll speak to your family. You decide which airport was best for all of you, not just you. You decide where you wanted to go, i.e., which supplier you're going to, where do you want to go. Well, you wouldn't just pick what you wanted. You'd go and have a chat and say, oh, I fancy this one. Where do you fancy? If you think of a holiday, it's a fantastic analogy.
Perfect
analogy of how you should all work together in an organization, especially when it's indirects, because indirects, there's loads of different cross-functional aspects of a supplier coming into a business, you know, that would use them. And so from that perspective, I think it's key.
Very interesting. You said that there's 5 modules to the training program.
Yeah.
At a high level, you know, just could you give us a title and flavor for each of those 2 through 5, now that you mentioned number 1 there as well?
Yeah. So you've got the concept stage, which is obviously, like I said, the first stage is concept. It's about getting on you know, understanding what you need, build or buy, don't work in silos, that type of stuff. Then you've got your homework, H. It's an anagram of, the anagram is checks. So before you go out to buy, do your check. And so basically, checks is homework. So do your market research, do your CrowdJit, your porters, all that type of stuff. The third, the E, is engagement. So that's when you're going out and doing your RFP, and how you engage, who's on your team, you know, how do you communicate, you know, creating races and stuff for people to understand what they're doing and how they're doing it. The C is then contracting. So the importance of contracting, and getting certain things right. And the S is supplier relationship. So doing the supplier relationship management piece at the end. And then that brings you back to your purchasing cycle, which brings you back to the beginning, which is once again looking at the concept. Is everything still okay?
So it's a flywheel as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Incremental small steps that
yeah,
build momentum. Yeah.
yeah. And in there, you've got the negotiation clock for people who are not clear on negotiations and how to do it.
Mm.
Doing a negotiation plan, doing a BAFO, all the things that you use. In the engagement piece, you've got getting all your people around a table so you know who is, how to make sure that when you're scoring your RFP, you do it individually rather than having it in a room, because
Mm.
basically you might have somebody who steamrollers the meetings, and so therefore it's a way of making sure. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't score an RFP individually. They get into a team, and you'll have somebody
Mm.
who's a senior member of staff or more vocal, and people won't get their point across. So there's
Right.
different aspects of the, and when we try and highlight them, and there's a piece around contracting which I love, which is called BS bingo, and basically that's a little nod to salespeople, because when you get a salesperson on the phone and says, "Oh, you've got to sign it by the end of the month," why? Is the world going to end? Is your pricing structure going to change dramatically in 2 days' time or 3 days' time after that
Yeah.
window? And so there's all these tips, and so yeah, BS bingo is quite fun. It's a fun. I would say that the actual training is animation. Um, I did all the voiceovers myself, so it's my voice you hear. We have a guru, Pat Purchase, who's the guru of the thing, who's teaching everybody. He's a procurement rock star. He's
Mm.
self-proclaimed procurement rock star. And yeah, as I say, it's light touch. It's not really heavy, but it gives a really good flavor to stakeholders and junior buyers
Mm.
of what procurement's all about.
Mm.
I had a junior buyer when I was at New Look Retailers. As a procurement manager, I managed the marketing procurement at New Look, and one of our junior buyers did the course, and he wrote 40 pages of notes.
Mm.
So, and he was just starting SIPs, and he says, when I don't understand the SIPs, I come back to my notes and I understand it better, because yours is in layman's terms, and it gives you a different. We try and use everyday things
Yeah.
as analogies for difficult concepts, you know. And so and that's how we do it, and that's how I do what I do. Is that we take the procurement fundamentals and make them into layman's terms so people can get it and understand it, and it's not frightening and it's not difficult.
I think that's important as well, because I think that, if we also within the space of procurement get obsessed with our own lingo and acronyms that we believe that everybody recognizes, well, then we're talking a coded language. And who is that hurting in the end? It's really only us ourselves, because the business doesn't get it, right? And I think that that's dangerous.
Well, marketing's like herding cats. It is like herding cats. People have
Mm.
got so many pressures. They just want people who can do the job. They want people who can just do the job. They want people who can just do the job. But they need to get it out, get it done, get it out, get it done, get it out. They're doing campaign after campaign after campaign after campaign. They've got a whole myriad of different things to worry about.
Mm.
The supplier needs to be the least of their worries. So trying to get through that noise
Mm.
and to get them to sit down is difficult. So, and the more put barriers in the way, which is like you say, terminology,
Yeah.
TLAs, you don't need that. You don't need it.
No. Agreed. I could be able to talk to you all day, Steve. I want to ask you one last question before we round off with a quick fire here.
Okay.
What's one rule in procurement that you regularly break, and or that you would suggest that people regularly break, and why do you think it works?
Um, that's a difficult question. The reason it's a difficult question is I don't see procurement as a set of rules per se.
Mm.
It's a function that helps define and supports business goals. However, if you're asking for one thing generically that you shouldn't say that I do, is that savings aren't the reason I'm here.
Hmm.
When I engage a stakeholder, I basically just say, costs are relevant. If you're doing an RFP and the suppliers, you've got 6 or 7 suppliers on an RFP, costs are relevant. Ask them why they're better. I ask them why they're better. They give you an answer of which one they like the most. And well, why is that? I ask them, why is that? And they have to add a convincing argument to me. And then obviously you've got all your data from all the different scores because you've scored it all individually. So you can then start to have a conversation of, well, why does that make them better than them? And you usually find out that, well, they like it because they've known the supplier for years. We've always used them. You know, the 6 most expensive words in any business because we've always done it that way. You know, just is, you know. So I challenge up offering contra arguments
Right.
to a possibly more cost-effective supplier. So I'm not driving around savings. I'm just like, well, I want you to have the quality supplier that you want.
Right.
Because it's about quality. However, the quality isn't about you having a relationship with them for 20 years.
Right.
That's not quality. It might be in some instances, but not necessarily. You know, and so there's that, but the thing I usually break is I'm not here to make savings. I'm here to make sure that the business has the right suppliers to deliver their business goals, because your third-party vendor base supports your business goals. If the third-party supplier vendor base isn't correct or isn't fit for purpose, you're never going to deliver your business goals. So for me, savings is a bit of a misnomer when, you know, when everybody's given a savings target, and sometimes you get departments that are given a savings target as well as procurement.
Yeah.
So who does that? Who's going to make the savings? The suppliers go. The department's going, oh, it's our saving because it's our budget.
Right.
Yes, you helped,
Right.
but it's our budget. And you'll go, no, but I did all the negotiation. You wouldn't have had this if it wasn't for me. Once again, it comes back to the NMCB. No more no more corporate. It's bureaucracy. It's just it. So it's like you need to have. For me, it's like, it's not about savings. I don't care about the savings. I care about having the right supplier delivering the business goals. If this supplier doesn't deliver the business goals, and we don't feel they can, then they're not the right supplier. We need to change.
Very pragmatic approach, and I think a necessary approach in today's way of doing business, right? Vendors need to be a source of innovation, performance, profits, right? And without having the right vendor relationships and being focused entirely on savings and cutting costs, well, that's hard to do. So thank you so much, Steve, for joining and sharing those fantastic insights. Before we let you go, I want to do a quick fire round, what we do with all of our guests. Quick questions, 1 word or 1 sentence answers.
Oh dear.
Nothing crazy here, and nothing about procurement. About you. Is that all right?
Okay, about me, yeah.
I'm not sure if you're a car guy. I'm just going to guess that maybe you like an automobile in your life. If you were going to have a automobile of your dreams, what would it be?
Porsche 911 Turbo.
Very quick answer. I like that. All expenses paid trip. You're going somewhere with your family or friends. It's going to be funded and sponsored by Kodiak Hub. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Where are you heading?
I would have to say Australia,
Oh,
because I've never been, and it's somewhere I would love to go.
very nice.
So
A podcast or a book that's something you keep coming back to, either in your personal or professional life?
it's a book, or a series of books actually, by Dr. Joe Dispenza. It's about meditation and how you can control and create your own life through meditation.
Exciting. Thank you so much for sharing. If people want to get in touch with you, learn more about NMCB, where everything counts, what's the best way to do it?
I'm on LinkedIn. I have a few followers on LinkedIn, or just send an email, steve@nmcbconsulting.co.uk.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be on today's episode.
You're welcome. It's been really fun. Thanks very much.